All right. I think I'll just go ahead and get started here. It is just a minute after 10 here. Well, I'm Central Time. Michael, you're Eastern Time, so we'll try to make everybody happy here. But they only gave me 27 minutes today, so I gotta roll. Usually I get an hour or something. So
Yeah,
all of a
I don't know
sudden I
why
just
they
got.
I don't know why they gave you so little time, but I understand it.
It's because they didn't want me to do a PowerPoint or anything
That's
like
right.
that.
We're
They
making
just got
Scott be super efficient. So here we go.
live product. Here we go. All right. Well, thank you for joining. Everybody that's on here, thank you for joining. And we came up with this idea a month or so ago to put together what we're just calling DocuFest. And DocuFest is I'm just going to go through and do a very quick product demo of how the management system, can help you guys as a company. Every company I feel needs document management. I was in the manufacturing business for about 18 years, and I don't know how you get by without. I mean, everybody's had file folders forever, but get rid of the file folder. Let's get rid of those. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my screen here and share. And I haven't even showed anybody, but look at that screen. That's a nice one.
That is pretty.
Yeah. So what I wanted to start out with here is everybody's familiar with SysPro. That's where we'll start. We'll start in SysPro. And with SysPro, we're just going to go into a sales order query and show you how SysPro is integrated with our DDX. All right. We're going to sales order query. And those of you that use SysPro all the time, you're aware that there's hyperlinked capability in SysPro. So we come in here to SysPro, we just select an order number, and then this particular order number is now hot. So it is a hyperlink, and it will allow us to go and do these different SysPro functions, but we can also load up DDX hyperlinks. So we can go straight into different documents and things like that directly from here. Now, this isn't the only way that you can get into our viewer, but this is one of the ways that you can get into our viewer. So when I click on that link, it will take me directly into our DDX viewer. And it'll look up order number 841. And when we get in here on 841, the thing that you're going to recognize it's different from using file folders and things like that is we're able to integrate or basically tie this stuff all together, just like you've stapled these pages together. Because we came in here because we were looking up order number 841. But since we came in here, all of these documents that we have stored in the system have keywords or key tags associated with them. Look in the lower left-hand corner. The acknowledgement. It tells us what division, what company code that was. So if you have multiple companies, we can see the difference. Customer name, customer number, even ship to information. The key here is that we're able to come in here, and if we knew 841, that's great. But the bottom line, if we didn't know 841, then we could come in, and because these things are all linked together, we could get to it a different way. I'll just show you an example here of, just showing different documents that are in here. We got the invoice, the picking ticket, a quote was created for this particular item. Now, the way that DDX works is items that come directly from SysPro, traditional SysPro documents are able to be stored in this archive by doing the simplest function in SysPro, and that is you print the document. And when you print the document, you print it to DDX, and you can do this in a batch. You don't have to do one at a time. So if you've got 20 invoices that you're ready to print or potentially send, you can go in and print invoices, and that will drop this invoice with the key tags as we show down here at the bottom in our archive. So you notice how that's all, everything's just linked together there. With that being said, if I did not know what the order number was, I could come in here and, knowing very minimal information, I could come in and say, well, I know that this was in company division MDL, and I know it was Bayside Bikes, and now they're giving me a list of invoices that are out here. So I'll say, okay, I think this is the one. Let's go ahead and just open the invoice. And yep, that's the one I was looking for. Now, with that being said, all the other documents, just as we showed on the previous page, are all here. It's just a different way to come in here and look them up. We do not store files in file folders. We take advantage of the file folder view because people understand what file folders look like. They understand how file folders work. And so they can go ahead and drill through there and find what they're looking for. Now we can have multiple different views. Those are listed up here at the top of the page. So we can look things up differently. We'll just take the example of what we call the clip. Now with the clip, with tabs, we can go in and find that 841. But notice at the bottom of the screen, at the bottom of this purchase order, are tabs. And those tabs allow us to just scan through the different documents. Again, looking at the same thing, but just from a different angle. So you can see there's multiple ways that we can actually look this information up. And the key to all of this is that we're keeping track of this information linked via key tags, because this information, these fields, are stored with the documents. Now, we're looking at this, when we've been looking at this, let's just go back to 841, we're looking at this from the accounts receivable side of things. Accounts receivable, you know, acknowledgments, invoices, and the like. But we can do this for any part of the SysPro system, and we can actually do this for documents external to the SysPro system. We have companies that are using it, you know, with invoicing and purchase orders and things like that, but they're also using it on the HR side of their company, where they're storing important documents that are stored out there. And keep in mind that documents are stored in a manner that only certain people can look up certain, what we call, I'll drop this little menu down over here, what we call document types. So I could make a person only have access to, say, expense reports or invoices, whatever the case may be. I could limit that to you know, what they have access to. And these document types are things that you set up as a company. These are your document types related to your documents that you store or want to store. And that could be internal or external documents from SysPro. So now if we'll take a look at this from another angle, we'll go ahead and go up here to accounts payable. And in accounts payable, you know, again, we could do a manual look up here and walk through and drill down into our MDP company, and then into the vendor, starting with a B, and then go to Bicycles Unlimited and say, well, I wanted to find a supplier invoice for this company, but I didn't know the name of the, you know, the invoice number, but I was able to drill to it automatically. Again, because of the keys that we have set up, this invoice is stored by company and then by its document type. And we could even go as far as saying, I want to look it up by date, because that's another field that's stored down here in the keywords, is the invoice date. So here is that particular invoice, and that's a supplier invoice. Now, how did that supplier invoice get into the system? This is an external document, but yet we have a way that we can actually get that document directly into DDX from what we call our AP robot. If I go to my AP robot, I'm not going to do a demo of AP robot, but I want to show you the hyperlinks that exist in the AP robot. And this is for AP automation. Now here is a invoice that was posted. So it's actually already been written into the SysPro invoice AP invoice file. And when I click on that hyperlink there, it takes me right into that supplier invoice. So there we go. There's that supplier invoice. It got here when we posted that supplier information into SysPro. So this is an external document that was brought in here automatically using the functionality that's in AP Robot. So again, now we can drill back and go back to the top level of these documents. And let's just look at purchase order 448. And that gives us access to an AP purchase order. But it also shows us the supplier invoice that goes with that purchase order. And it also shows us the receiver. The supplier invoice would come in via AP Robot. No steps involved, no extra steps. The purchase order would come in from SysPro. All we did was printed the purchase order, and that would put it away in here. The AP check could also come from SysPro automatically by printing. And then the receiver would be the one document that would come in externally, because this is a hard copy document that we're probably using out in the warehouse when we're unloading and bringing this information, bringing this all in. Now, you asked the question, how do we get an external document into DDX? I've stated that we can get in purchase orders, AP checks, we can get in invoices, acknowledgments. So let's go back to our example that we used with the sales order, the sales order 841. All of these documents, the bill of lading was actually brought in externally. This email was brought in externally. So was the customer PO. The invoice and acknowledgement came in via SysPro. But now let's say we've got another document that we want to store in here in 841. So we will go ahead and we will just minimize screens here. So we can put these down. And we'll go to our DDX publisher. And we'll open that up. And so now the publisher will open up and it will look to a file folder that is where we would bring in any documents that are ready to be published, that are ready to be archived. I just brought up the publisher here, but I'm going to go ahead and minimize that. And I'm going to say we have a certification document. I'll bring it out here. We have a certification document that we got. It was brought in via the scanner, and we want to publish that to the archive. There's a file folder here I'm going to just drop that into. So I did nothing more than drop that in the file folder. I will then go back to the publisher, which we had open, and we'll refresh the screen, and there's our certificate document. So the matter of dropping that into a file folder and opening up our publisher. We're now ready to publish this document. Now over here on the right-hand side, this is what we call our value module. And our value module allows us to go out and fill in the key tag data. This is the important information that we need so that when we store this, we can find this document via the order number, the customer name, the customer number, the ship to, all of the information that's tied to that. So we're going to go in here, and there's one of these fields is highlighted in blue. That means that's the one we're going to use as a key, and we're going to use that to go out and look up information that fills in these key tags. Now you notice I didn't have to enter those key tags. I did if I would have come in here and this was set to a different particular setting, I would have had to set it to certification document. But in this case, it was already set that way. So all I've really done is drop this file into the folder and then opened up the certificate doc type and done a lookup for the order we're going to hook it to. And then we go ahead here and we just do save. And it will then store that information. Now, the cool part here is over on this value module, this little window over here. If we had more documents that need to be stored against 841, we would not have to continue entering 841. We would just go and say, okay, I got a customer PO. It then goes out and gets the tags for that. And then we would just have that document in the file folder and we just do save. And we could walk through multiple documents that are related. So it's a very, very quick, very simple process to store these documents away, picking ticket, all the different documents that are available there. So we have then brought that in now into the viewer, the DDX archive. We'll minimize, or I'm actually going to close out of the publisher now, and we'll actually go back to the viewer. And we were sitting on this order number 841 when we were in the viewer before. And we'll just refresh the screen. And it'll then go out and find that certificate document that we put in there. So it's as easy as that. And as I mentioned, we're not putting this in file folders. We're not putting this where you have to go find it. And to top that off, we're storing all of this information in SQL, and we're actually encrypting and compressing the data. So even a drawing as such, it won't be as large as it would be if you were just storing it in a file folder. It will be compressed just like you zipped it up. It'll be compressed that way in the archive. And just to give you an example, I've got a customer of ours that's been using the DDX archive for over 20 years, and they currently have 7 million documents in their archive. And they actually have 12 different company codes, 12 different divisions, totally different locations that have documents in that document storage. And they've chosen not to drop anything off after 7 years. But the bottom line is we actually have retention policies. So you can choose to, if you'd like, set up retention policies that would allow you then to drop items off after they get to a certain age. Now I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go back to our example of the purchase order, because I want to give you an example here of how we could do a little bit of a workflow where we could approve of, for instance, a supplier invoice. I've got a supplier invoice here, and I'd like someone within the company, I'd like to set up a lookup so that they can view this supplier invoice, and they can give me a heads up if it's approved or not approved or the like. I'm going to change my view up here at the top of the page to be my workflow all statuses. And with that, I'm just going to go to list status. Now this could be pointed so that this is directly pointed at it could be directly pointed at a particular user. So maybe a purchase order manager or something like that. He would only get access to the supplier invoices that he's responsible for. So this list would ultimately be his responsibility. So then we come in here, and I've just went to a workflow, all statuses. I looked at what's pending, what's still out here for me to approve or not approve. And when I do that, I actually have a drop down over here that states, would I like to approve it, complete it, reject it? And then I actually even have the ability to type a comment here. And those comments, just to see examples here, here's comments up above that have already been posted. And those are just examples of passing that through. And then this would get passed through, and once approved, it would end up on someone else's list, which would allow it to be, completed so that it could be paid. Now, on that same thought process, we've got here this invoice, a supplier invoice. that is actually out here that came in. And what I want to do is I want to go back to the AP robot because I want to take you to an item that is unposted and just show you how we can actually research those unposted. This happens to be an invoice that came in, and the robot is taking a look at it, and we are now ready to process that. Now, I want to go and look at the purchase order related to that because this would help me to understand what I need to do with this supplier invoice. So I can go ahead, the purchase order would already exist within the archive. And there is the purchase order that relates to that particular item. Just kind of minimize that. So this happens to be purchase order 461, and that relates, which you can see up here in the lookup, to order number 461. So that's the way that we can handle that. So we can get to the DDX from within the AP robot. We can get to DDX via the SysPro hyperlink. And here's another example of that. We can just go out and we can find order number 448 from SysPro and do that lookup. That will bring us right into order number 448 in here. I'll just change that. But that'll bring us right in. It actually brought us in because 448 and 461 are interrelated. So that is why that worked out that way. You'll notice 441. And we've got the invoice, all of this from the supplier side of things. So I can look at these items from within the DDX via the lookup here, and that will link these items because they're stored away with the key tags. And then we actually have access to all the associated documents. I can go back now. I'm going to change this so that we're looking at customer orders, but we can change this now to 841 and go back and find that particular item, and then everything that is linked to that particular item, even including this certificate that we brought in this morning. So the bottom line when it comes to document management is I don't understand. I really don't understand how a company can survive without a tool like this. I really feel every company needs document management. I even think about the pandemic when we had all this information that was stored away in file folders, and people were, you know, the file cabinets back at the corporate office, and people were working out of their living rooms, out of their home offices and things like that. Well, with DDX, you can get to all of that information. It's all stored electronically, and it's easily found, easily located, and it really works out well for the customer to be able to look this information up that way. And without that, you got to go back to the file folders and dig around. And we all know what that amounts to as far as digging around in file cabinets, file folders. And every year you have to dump a whole set so you can bring in a whole nother load, whole nother year worth to store. So, but this just goes on. And, you know, there's really no limit to what we can do here. I hadn't even shown, but the bottom line, if I needed to send this invoice, email it to a customer, I just bring it up on the screen, click my mail button, and it will go ahead and open up my email and drop that out to, you know, to the associated email address that we want to send it to. That really concludes what I wanted to go through here today. They told me I had 27 minutes, and I think we're at about 26 minutes. So but we're open to questions. You know, anybody wants to ask a question or let me go back and show anything,
have one question.
I'll be more than happy. Absolutely, Michael.
So this is a desktop application software. In other words, it's loaded on that local machine. I can see it. Do you have is there a web-based interface?
Yes, there is. The application, the viewer and the publisher are loaded on the desktop. The DDX, the entire DDX archive system is actually usually installed on the same server as your SysPro application. And then we take advantage of your SQL server because we store our data in SQL. So you would have a DDX SQL database in your current SQL server.
Right, but the viewer itself, if I didn't want to load the DDX software on every machine effectively, but wanted to leverage the browser for viewing documents, searching and viewing documents, is there a web interface for searching and viewing documents?
Yes, I'm just going to open that up here. There is the document viewer.
I see.
So we can go ahead.
And very similar view. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. All right. Excellent.
I'm running on a virtual machine, so you can only guess. I'm running on a laptop on a virtual machine on my laptops.
Yes. Yeah,
when you see some little bit of sluggishness every once in a while, that's what it amounts to. But there's that same document that we're looking at, just in the other system.
Okay. Good. I don't think you had that the last time I looked at this. That you had that functionality. You say you store the document in SQL as a binary object, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just like we're zipping it up. If you were to take and zip up a file, we're actually storing it away that way. Yeah, we're not truly storing a PDF or any of these documents. We're storing it, and then when it comes back out, it comes out as a PDF.
Yeah. Okay.
Just as it was stored.
No worries.
Yep.
You're dropping files into a folder, and upon dropping the file into the folder, you're meta tagging it, correct? You're telling it what type of document it is, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. Exactly right. That's what we're doing with the publisher when we've got the publisher open,
Right.
because the publisher just looks to this folder.
And it says anything in this
there.
folder is a purchase order. Anything in this folder is an invoice, correct?
We actually put them all in the same folder.
All in the
No.
same folder. Okay.
Yeah, we don't have to split them up or anything like that. And then if there's some external documents, frankly, that maybe we have a company right now that we're working with that's looking to store about 250,000 documents annually, because that's what their business requires. And we're automating that. So it wouldn't have to go through the publisher. We would set up a set of rules, and our system would just read that, and then it would set the document type and store it away with the like key tags.
Okay, excellent. That was the only questions I had. Thank you. I have to jump off to another meeting in 1 minute.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you for answering.
Yep, thank you, Michael.